supposed to scare me away.
I know what I'm supposed to do. I hate it.
Come on.
I just see the other center.
Same thing. But then when we went up to 90, we were 5.
Are you guys having that moment? Yeah, take that.
Yeah, he's in stuff.
And that turns out that then there'll be a split.
It's off the west.
Eventually it's a traffic.
So in that runs east to west, all goes south.
Unless you can.
So, you know, you get 43?
Yeah.
43 south, right? Then you go west.
She said she did introductions.
Then you go west, 45 south. So it should be like your phone's your first exit.
Okay, so
Where are you going about some people?
it's near 30th Street and Green.
Oh, no, then I'm taking you too far west. What if it's off 18?
Borrowed. Permanently borrowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is an assisted living home I'm going to see in Green.
That's over there.
After about 3 days, it's like, oh, 3. But it's sharing the meal permanently. She's 1 block south of Green. She said, or Hughes or Mequon, or you want to go She's supposed to go very west.
I mean, you still could do it that way, but I don't think you don't have to do like reruns, like. So you have to do these things, you know.
She's down here now.
Oh, I see. So that's got to, I'm not going to figure it out. I've got an atlas.
You could just get off there, but I mean, and they just use that police rule. Let's see, train section says it's 16. And I guess I could just do that.
Always fails, and they're trying to find.
These are your refill, right? Yeah. I just don't know if there's refill that's not made for it.
That's sweet.
That's just one line. It said first
You guys.
But they, I think people are confused.
It's about the same.
Okay.
That's what it means when Chris was the mayor. And she was probably the mayor. She was the third, so I think she I guess Rick's coming to this one.
And your first, and your view was well, but he walked in.
How do you figure?
What am I from?
My name is Rachel Pollock, and I started teaching at Zion Lutheran Academy in Fort Wayne 6 years ago. Our first year that I was there was with Pastor Ron Misking at the same time, and we were not very classical at all. We had a vision of where we wanted to go, but we didn't very much of that the first year. And that summer, after my first year, so this was 5 summers ago, we went to Moscow, Idaho, to the classical education conference there, and learned about classical education, and came back to Fort Wayne and tried to start implementing it slowly. And it's a very slow process, but I think we're getting there slowly but surely. And that same summer, Hughes came and went to Idaho with us, and I'll let her introduce herself.
I've been at Zion for 5 years, and I'm
was leaving Zion, that was my last year, and I moved up to Hughes Lutheran Academy in Sussex, Wisconsin, and I'll be teaching up there and taking on the duties as headmistress also. But I did start with the art program, Rachel. Well, actually, there were several other people that started initially with us. It's kind of ended up with just the two of us. This, as you can see, it says Impact 2000. Initially was a grant for $1,800 from the Lutheran Foundation, which is in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The Lutheran Foundation is actually a foundation set up as the result of the sale of the Lutheran Hospital in Fort Wayne. And Lutheran Hospital had been sponsored by all the Lutheran churches, got together and put the money together, started a hospital years and years ago. When they finally sold it outside of the Lutheran community, they took all the funds, put it into a foundation, and now they dole out the money every year to various groups of people. And you don't even have to be Lutheran, it's just kind of a community-wide idea. They then gave money to two Lutheran teachers, three of them, associated with Concordia High School in Fort Wayne. And what they did is their project, or their money grant initially, was to promote with Lutheran school teachers critical thinking and creative thinking. And so this grant money that we received is only local. So if it was, nationwide, we could tell you all about it if you guys have one. But they came up with the name Impact is actually an acronym standing for Improving Minds, Problem Analysis, and Critical Thinking. And they have, how many years did they run this, Rachel? Was this 7 years? And we each went through the impact training, as did most of the faculty. Not within more faculty, but most of the old faculty had gone through training. And then this grant came up, and they called it a mini grant, and they called them the I-2000 projects. And they were for $1,800 for the first year, and then the second year, because we needed another year to complete our program, we received $1,500. So that was the initial disbursement of money, and it started in 2000 and 2001. Actually, our presentation today is actually a requirement we didn't follow to either write an article on what we did or to present at a conference, and we chose a presentation instead. Our objective, you could do anything you wanted to do as long as you could prove it was critical thinking. They are not at all classically minded. Actually, we were more of the outsiders. They looked at us as kind of strange and unusual. But they still gave us some money. And we said, well, we're going to redo the art curriculum anyway, so we might as well use this money to do it and be able to be successful with it. And it took us a long time to convince them. They argued with us for a while, art, either creating art or children learning about art history is not critical thinking, it's not creative, and we thought it was a little bizarre, but we argued with them a little bit more, and we finally got approval for it. So the art history, the art program consisted in our minds, and we wanted to make it classical. We really, up to that point, really had very little art. Every teacher kind of did whatever came along, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. So we thought that a true classical art curriculum would have art history, and it would also have the skills taught in art, so that it would be technical, that this is a part where you teach them to draw properly, you teach them to do sculpting or whatever it was, but there were certain skills that they needed to learn. And so we got down to business. So the first year, really, was primarily mapping all this out, getting it all organized. And to take care of the art history, we did two different things. One of the first things is we started a subscription to Scholastic Art. This is generally geared to high school, but I've used it many years, even before I was at Zion, to teach art history, and it has art projects in it. You can gear it down to the upper grades. Every magazine comes with one masterpiece. Now, it comes out 6 times a year, and it's not always good art. So there may be some issues that you don't use. But there's no advertising whatsoever, and it's informative, and the kids do like it. We did not use it a lot this year because of, and I'll explain how we started our program. But this is an excellent source. It is expensive though, but this is Scholastic Art. The other part that we spend 3 years. Yes, and we keep ours in the museum. We do not give them to the students to use, or to keep, I should say. We let them use them, but not keep them. The other source that we picked up was a book called Art and Story. And we do have this all on a sheet for you, so you don't need to write these down. So you will time. Art and Story teaches art history, and this is for elementary school children, and it teaches them about art history in story form. So it's really nice, it's all well done, and then they have also art ideas in here, and so it's a nice resource. And every classroom had one of these this year. Some teachers used it a lot, some didn't use it at all, some used it a little bit. So for example, Art of the Middle Ages. They would give you background information that you could read, and then that would be basically yourself. And then the story that you would read to the children. And after that, they would have lesson 1, medieval churches, viewing the art, journal writing, art drama activity, stained glass, and there's an activity. And then they have lesson 2, they have several lessons for it. So this was another good resource. But then we realized that what is the grammar of art history, per se? And that's, well, there's certain masterpieces that students need to know. Well, then we came up and go, okay, what are those masterpieces? And something that we use and we don't happen to have here with us, we're sorry about this, called the Annotated Mona Lisa. And it's a crash course in art history, which we spent a lot of time looking at that and going through that and trying to see how much of this, we didn't know, and what really did the students need to know. And then we came up with the idea of the art cards. And this was kind of connected because we were using a history timeline that was initially started by, what school? It's part of the Eastern Consortium. What was the name? New Covenant Schools. They had a history timeline. So what we did was we thought there would be certain masterpieces from all the time periods, except we were very, very limited on the modern art because we did not believe that was really worth studying to the extent that others do. That causes some problems, especially with our people involved with the grant, because one person was really into art as part of the major. I'll show you a couple of cards. We can pass these around. Here's one here, Nike of the Samuel Grace. It would have the masterpiece on this side, and on the back, information about the piece, about the art, in this case, about the artist, but about the artist and what you would want children to pick out. Now, initially, when you first would show these to kindergartners, it would be learning the name of the piece and the artist. And as you go on, you'd add more information until the point when they got into 7th and 8th grade, and they could do a more in-depth critique. That was our idea. Now, what you have are sample cards. The cards are not complete at this point. That's still part of this year of the money of what we're using it for.
Now, is this part of the New Covenant timeline, or did you develop your own?
We developed these. And so those are the beginning ones, and Rachel has some more handouts when she comes up on those and all the background information that's on those. So Zion is still going to be publishing and producing those handouts. So these are just kind of sample ones. We were going to use them like the flashcards, and I actually said we have 33 on there. We were looking for 35, wasn't it? And so we went to that. Then we came to the art itself, and Pastor Robbins had an idea that we developed guilds. And just like in the Middle Ages, where a person would work in a guild until they had mastered all of the skills and they could go out on their own. And there were 3 stages. You started as an apprentice, then you went to a journeyman, and then you became a master. So we divided into 4 guilds. Drawing and painting was 1 guild, sculpture was the 2nd guild, printmaking was the 3rd, and needlework was the 4th. And we tried to cover each of the different areas. And then we decided that it would be a good idea that all children from all grades, that we'd mix them all up. So you'd have kindergarten through 8th grade in each guild. And so we decided this, and we did some planning, and Rachel will pass out some handouts a little later on that, for that. But year 1 then, What we actually did, so we would have the art history, the magazine, the masterpiece cards, and then we'd have the fields where they'd actually do art. And that would be our year 2 of actually implementing that. That was the idea. The year 1 was a long one. It was a lot of writing. We had to have a budget, we had to have our objectives, we had to have our goals, and we spent a lot of time trying to convince them still that this was a worthwhile project. They could have pulled the money at almost any time, and in order for us to do the implementation, we needed the grant money for the second year. And so it took a long time. Rachel had put together a portfolio, and if you didn't have that, there were deadlines that we had to meet, there were presentations that Rachel had to do yet. Otherwise, there were problems all along the line. So the first year was a long time in planning. We also realized that we can't throw our faculty into this because they weren't all trained as art teachers. So what are we going to do for the faculty to get them ready? Well, we had several ideas. The first one, there was a local artist in town who was also a former art teacher, who was still taught, he was retired, he still taught art classes on the weekends. And what he agreed to do is to come in and to provide projects for each of our art guilds, one project per guild, so that when we started the art guilds, every teacher would automatically have one project set. And then we had to decide, well, we toyed with the idea of every quarter or semester switching art guilds. So that children that started out in the drawing and painting then maybe would shift to the needlework, and then they would switch later on, so that for 4 quarters you would make a full cycle. And then we also toyed with the idea of just not moving them at all. And that we went back and forth all year. We finally said this year we just kept them all in one art guild. And that had some benefits and then also had some drawbacks. The next thing that we did is how we would place some of these guilds. So we did a little bit of a PR campaign about, art guilds, Middle Ages, you're all apprentices, and that sort of thing, got them all excited. And then we let them choose. We said, okay, you have 4, rank them. And with the exception of the upper grades who were basically placed in our guilds, the upper grades, 5 through 8, had their choices, except for a couple who, they just had to be placed for a number of reasons. Each art guild had 2 teachers and approximately 20 children from K through 8, with the idea that the older children would be able to help the younger children. And that's what we were. And we did this every Friday, and we did it for approximately 1 hour. And that was the way we had set that up. We looked at the 4 art programs. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel if you don't have to. And so we searched and we searched and we tried a lot of different things, and we just didn't like them. One program that did look really good, but we never implemented this year because you have to be certified by the program in order for it to work, is called the Gordon School of Art. The Gordon School of Art, and if you were here last year, you would have seen Gordon. He was here doing some presentations, he read some classes for some of the children that were here at the conference. Very unusual. I really found him really by chance. I was researching on the internet, and I put in classical art curriculum, like I'm going to find something's going to come up. And this is what came up, and we were shocked. He has an extensive information on his website, and it's on the bottom of this page on the back. He's got his email. Maybe he doesn't have it on here. But let me just tell you his website so you know that. His website is www.newmasters.com, and it is on there. Okay, thanks. The idea he taught art for 20 years in the public schools in Green Bay. And he loved modern art, and he would try to teach it and go through the whole program. But the unfortunate thing was he couldn't get the kids to, he was teaching middle school for a long time. He could not get the students to understand it, to agree with it, and he couldn't understand why. And he had a lot of extra time. So he spent his time going back and going through art history, reading it, studying it, and it really came to him that he had it all wrong. That the grand masters of the Renaissance, that's what the true art was. So he went back and he studied the Renaissance, Vinci and Michelangelo and all the greats. And he went through and he isolated all the skills necessary to teach children. And he developed his own program. So he put in a lot of time, and he explains a little bit in here. I'll let you look at that at your own leisure. But initially, you're thinking this is going to be boring, it's going to be slow, and when he actually taught it, I was able to see him teach it. It was incredible how much. He works on drawing straight lines with children, how to hold the pencil, how to draw a curved line. If there's a curved line drawn here, he wants you to duplicate it. And they look at it, it's not just perfect, he's going to make them redo it again. He also has a video. Now this he uses as a homeschool program because that's the only success he could find. Homeschools, you want them to do it at the time at least. Lutheran schools really didn't know about him. And he's come on a little bit slowly, and it's getting better for him in that respect. But what he did with his program then is he did slides with children and adults that came to his program. He had a woman that came to him to learn to draw. She was interested. She wanted to know how to draw and paint. And as she did that, he found out she was having real problems. He had to create new worksheets for her. It took him longer to work with her. He had all these problems. And then all of a sudden, he showed us when she first started, the first, there was such crude drawings at the beginning. And as she progressed along, and at the very end, she's now a professional technical artist. And it's just astounding what he was able to do. So he provides for classroom teachers certification. He will explain it to you. You will be allowed to go through the program. He's got a binder. He will have you take one student on. You would need to teach that student and send their work in. He evaluates it, sends it back to you, and eventually he will certify you then to teach. And the only thing that he requires then is that you always tell him whoever you have in your class, and then he keeps a record of who's taking the course. That costs nothing. And then if you're going to teach it, he just requires that you purchase the supplies from him for the drawing. And it's like $25, and it's just, a basic set of supplies. He is more than happy to help teachers out. We never got to the point where I got trained completely. I had some other grants this year, and I didn't have an opportunity to do that. But he was willing to come down and help us set up the classroom and how it worked and get us started. So he's very willing. And I just talked to him recently, and he has been asked back by St. Norbert College in Green Bay, and he is now going to be teaching art classes there also, because they found out that their students could not get into graduate art courses, classes, or studies, I should say, because they weren't technically good enough. They said, do whatever you want to do because we know it works, we've heard about it, we've seen it. And so he's now also going to be trying to get a program going to train art teachers. So the information there is good. If you go online, he'll tell you his philosophy, his standards. It's really excellent. It's classical, and he didn't even know he was classical. So, and he's very interested. That was what we wanted to use for our drawing and painting class. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time that was necessary to be certified in and to get it off the ground. But it is an excellent program. We then went on for sculpture, printmaking, and needlework. And we spend a lot of time purchasing supplies and trying to purchase things with the grant money that we normally wouldn't get. We didn't want to buy the paper and things like that, things that you'd also have to supply yourself naturally. But those items that could be reused. So we spent time doing that and testing out curriculums and that sort of thing. We also were told by the impact that we had failed in one aspect at the time. We needed to have a party for our teachers because we put them through so much. So we were told that we were bad in that respect. So we decided to do something a little bit better. We went to the Indianapolis Museum of Art, and they had a specific show. They were showing the jewels and the artwork of the Russian czars. And so the faculty went through that program and also gave the faculty time to get a look at the museum. Then this spring, the 5th through 8th grade went down there as a field trip. So the faculty, at least I did, the other teacher had changed, but at least I had an idea of what was there, what we could take them through to see. And that trip in and of itself was very successful. The students got to see a lot of the artwork. We put them on like a scavenger hunt. They were looking for certain things in the art museum. So because you know if you take students on field trip and give them nothing, you know what happens. So we knew going that far, we had to give them something to be looking for to make it worthwhile. The implementation went very smoothly in the respect of selecting students, getting them in the guilds, the initial projects getting started. Several classes also took field trips. There was the title was Naked Clay Cafe, where you could pick pieces of clay, work with the glaze and then have it fired, and our sculpture group, guild, went there. Our needleworking group went to the Fort Wayne Museum of Art because they had a unique needlework display. And of course, the upper grades went to the Indianapolis Museum of Art. So overall, it was a huge project that we initially started with 2 years ago, redoing the whole art curriculum. And then we attempted to get it organized in 1 year and implement it the second year. And certain things worked very, very well, and other things didn't work well at all. Rachel's going to tell you about those things that worked real well, those things that didn't work so well, and also the future plans that I have.
I gave this presentation about 2 weeks ago, and what you're going to see was really what the impact was looking for. So it might not be truly classical, but you can see what we did. Everyone see okay? When we picked the art guilds, we wanted it to be classical, and so we found a definition of guilds. And Kim explained pretty well that we had 4 groups. Each group had about 20 students and 2 teachers, and we tried to be real precise about time, that we had the little kids go to the restroom and wash your hands and get a drink and all of that about 1 o'clock, and then they started promptly at 1:15, and you had to have your children back to their classrooms by 2:15. And this worked real well because we have chapel at 2:45, we do compline on Fridays, and so it was enough time to get everyone organized and over to your chapel in time. The first guild was drawing and painting, and some of the projects that they did is they worked on the color wheel, and they did a color wheel design, which is the first picture hanging up there. They enlarged an icon, and they did lots of coloring of great artworks. And as Kim said, they hope to implement the Gordon School of Art and do more drawing next year. Here they are painting, and there they are working on an icon. And we don't have a picture of it finished, but we did Gabriel. What was it? The Archangel Gabriel. And they drew it, they enlarged it and drew it, and then they painted it. And there we are drawing and painting. On the right-hand side is Benjamin Rothfuss. The next group was needlework, and that was my group, and so I can say the most about it. What worked really well for the first year, since they had no skills, is we did a lot with the plastic mesh and yarn or embroidery, and that worked very well because all the students from kindergarten through 8th grade could handle it, and the 8th graders could do it in more detail. And they enjoyed making up their own patterns and not just doing the patterns that we had. The teddy bear on the wall was made by a first grader. And the first project we did was the teddy bears. And I thought, oh, what did we get ourselves into? We spent the whole first day of art guild learning how to thread a needle. And my mom teaches home ec, and she had warned me. She said, oh, it's going to be really hard to teach them to thread a needle. And I should have listened, because we spent the whole day on that. But then after that, then they knew how to thread a needle. And the rest of the year went pretty well. We also, pot holders, and the older children did some cross-stitching, maybe in Mother's Day present. And there they are, weaving pot holders. It's hard to see that they're looking at a cross stitch. And it's hard to see because she had a white blouse on. But for Easter, they made bunnies and they wore them, and they were very proud. The other thing we did is after September 11th, they made flags and they wore them. They were very proud to wear what they made. And they're working on teddy bears. The next group was printmaking, and there were a couple of parents involved in this group too, besides Headmaster Rogers. And they did some stamping on great big posters, and they hung these up at the cafeteria. And the children were very excited when a visitor would come to lunch. They had to say, "Look what's on the wall," and "Look what we made." And they also made paper and did paper marbling and tie-dye. The next group was sculpture, and they did a lot with the Crayola Mob Magic, and they found that to work real well because you don't need to put it in kiln. They also did some coil and pinch pots from clay and some paper mache, which I hear was quite messy, but the kids had a good time. And I put in here one of the kindergartners. His last name started with a B. And because the teachers were working with not their grade that they normally teach, they were working with K through 8, the teacher said, "Oh, look at all the animals you could pick, look at all the things you could pick." And that's what he wanted. And she got back to school and she said, "Why did you want to let him be?" And we said, "Well, that's his last name." And he was so proud of it. I asked him if I could bring it to the presentation to show, and no, he had to take it home this summer. They went on field trip to Naked Clay Cafe, and over on the left, they're showing off what they made and doing some paper cutting, I think. And she talked about the field trips. This is the teachers when we went to the Indianapolis Museum of Art, and also the Sculpture Guild went to Naked Clay Cafe, and the Needlework Guild went to see an artist called Judy Chicago, and grades 5 to 8 went to the Indianapolis Museum of Art. And over on the left, some more sculptures they made at the Naked Clay Cafe, and on the right, when we went to the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. And there are 33 masterpieces, and that was the first handout you have is in chronological order. And this handout is what is on the back of the cards. And there is a picture of the art on the front, and then the text on the back. The artist's name, the date of work, and information about it is on the back. The next handout is more about Gordon. We have lots of handouts about Gordon. And his email is on there if you have more questions. When we first started this, we knew that we wanted to do art classically, and we knew that the art history was important, and also the children doing art themselves. And we wanted them to produce art that was quality, and we knew that they had potential to do this, but we had not taught them the skills to do this. We wanted them to produce art that made them proud that they accomplished something, and art that they were willing to take home and wouldn't be put on the refrigerator for a week and then thrown out. And when Pastor Brandes had this vision to have kindergarten and 8th grade in the same art field, he said, just think if a student worked on needlework or whatever their art field is, all the way from the time they were in kindergarten to 8th grade, think of what they would be able to accomplish by the time they graduated from Zion. And we also thought it would be great to have kindergarten and 8th grade in the same guild because they could help each other. And it's amazing sometimes when the kindergartners are encouraging the older children and vice versa when the older ones are helping the little ones. There were some good parts of the art guild and some things worked very well. The artwork turned out very well. When I presented a couple weeks ago, the teachers did not believe that all of the artwork I brought was the kindergartners and first graders. And they said, well, surely they took this home and finished this at home and their parents helped them, or surely the teachers helped them. And the teacher-student ratio was 1 to 10. We didn't have time to do their art for them. They did this all by themselves. If we only had half a day of school, because there was an in-service in the afternoon or something, they were very disappointed if they didn't have art done on Friday. And they seemed to almost be off schedule the next week because they hadn't had art guild on Friday. I expected to have lots of discipline problems because I teach first grade, and to bring all these kids in here with only 2 teachers, I expected to have lots of discipline problems. And it was not bad. There were not, I don't know about the other art guilds, but I think overall the kids got so excited about the art guilds and doing the art that they did misbehave. It was also good for them to meet another teacher, and it's an older grade for them to have somebody to look forward to having later. And I know that the first graders would see their art guild teacher in the hallway and be all excited, oh, there was my art guild teacher. It was also good for the kids to see each other, and we did some things with the kindergarten and in the art guilds where the kindergartners and the older kids partnered up for field trips or for Christmas caroling. And so it wasn't just doing art in the art guilds, but we did some things as the art guild. And that was good for the children to be with other grades. There were a couple of things that I knew that we had done something right. There was a PTL meeting at the end of the school year, and the parents begged the teachers. They were the ones that brought it up. We said, any questions? And they said, are you going to do art guilds next year? You have to do art guilds. Our children loved it. There was a kindergartner that was only attending half a day, even though our school day is a full-day program. And he went home and begged his mom to stay on Friday afternoons. And she let him stay because he wanted to go to art guilds. I think that even though we only did this for 1 year, I think that it was much more classical than before. And when we get all of it implemented, it will be very classical. And there were also some things that didn't work so well about this. It was very hard to be part of a program that went for years. And we had all these ideas for a year, but we didn't actually start it till last school year. It was very difficult to have kindergarten and 8th grade in the same art guild. And I had hoped that it would work better than it worked, but it was very frustrating for some of the teachers to come up with projects that the kindergartners could handle and the 8th graders could handle. Some of the teachers loved it, and with everything it'll be that way. And it was also very hard if one student completed a project before another student completed theirs. Originally, we had planned that at the semester they would switch art guilds, but during the year we decided they would stay in the same art guild all year. And some of the children became bored being in the same art guild. I would say overall that by the end of the year they were glad they had done that. But during the winter months when every class is starting to drag on, that was a problem. For some of the teachers, preparing for this was very hard because they didn't have any training, and there were a couple teachers that already on Monday were very nervous about what they were going to do on Friday. And what the projects ended up being were not always classical. We had this great idea, but when you have to plan for a whole entire school year, sometimes your projects weren't always classical. But we found that our problems were mainly that the faculty wasn't trained to do this, and that the students were in the same art guild all year. We need to, as a faculty, sit down and really decide how to do art guilds next year. We have a couple of new teachers coming in, and so we haven't had a chance to do that. But some ideas that have been talked about is that we would divide up into art guilds by age instead of having K through 8 the same art guild. And possibly have kindergarten and first grade in one guild, second through fourth grade in one guild, and fifth through eighth grade in another guild. Also, it's been talked that we would switch by the quarter and still do all 4 art guilds to drawing and painting, sculpture, needlework, and printing. But you would only spend 1 quarter on each one. And you would repeat those same art guilds every year, so they would still be doing them every year, but not spend the whole year on an art guild. We want to really focus on the Gordon for the drawing, and there's also been talk that the whole first semester would be drawing, and then second semester would be divided into the other art guilds. So we as a faculty need to fine tune. I think we do have a good idea, and I think this is classical, but we need to fine tune it to what would work best for our school. I have one more handout. And this is a list of resources that we found to be very helpful. And some of these we checked out from the library, and some of these I brought today. I want to point out a couple to you. We found this art memo game, which is like saying concentration, and they match the artist's step. And I think anytime there's resources like this where there's a game out of something classical, we should take advantage of it. Also, the Mount Hope teachers talked about drawing with children, and it made us think of how we could have a daily drawing lesson and then do the art guilds on Friday. And so we have this resource, and some teachers used it a lot. And I have not read through it all, so I think this will be a very valuable work. Another is teaching history through art, and it will have a background of, this is about the Great Wall of China, and then it has a project to do. Some of them are not too good, like this one is about Hannibal and elephants, and then teaches them how to draw elephants. But some are very good. The Start Exploring Masterpieces has the background about the artist and then a picture to cover. This is a series, and this one is what makes Leonardo a Leonardo. And I have used this series a lot in my classroom. It talks all about the background, and it has very good illustrations. And then it has the top things that are characteristic of that artist at the back. So it's what makes Leonardo a Leonardo. One thing about being part of this grant is our leader of this grant was on the lookout for materials for us. And I was very impressed when at the end of the year she said, well, I was in France last month and I picked this up and I hope you don't mind accepting something else. And when I opened it up and realized what a treasure we had been given, I couldn't believe it. And this is the Bayeux Tapestry. And I had read about this and heard about this, but I had no idea how huge this was. And so I want to pass this around. I have no idea how you would ever get a copy of this because she got this when she went to a museum in France. But I want you to see how it is. And Kim already talked about the Art and Story and the Scholastic Art magazine. What the children in my classroom found is they like to hear the story, the art history as a story, and then act it out. And there's drama after the story. And Kim also talked about the annotated Mona Lisa, which would be an excellent resource for your faculty to know where to begin. And unfortunately, we weren't all trained in the art history, so there's a place to start. Then the next handouts are what we originally proposed to do with our guilds, and I thought maybe that would be something useful to know what our plan was and what exactly the guilds were planned to do. And then the last couple pages talk about what we handed to the kids so they could choose which art guild to be in. And I don't know, the other science teachers want to add something. Or questions, not for the science faculty.
I know you have a music program at Zion. How is the way the music program is, how is that different from the art program?
The main resource for the lower grades is Grace Bartel. What is the name? Grace Bartel's Music is Great. Is that
Something
right?
like that.
Do they just do it in their own individual classrooms, or, and do you have one music teacher that
We
does
don't
it?
have any.
So each teacher does music, but it's more, I think, traditionally, in the classroom, but this is.
And you can only do one thing at a time. We tried to tackle too much in the beginning, and so this art is our focus, and now that we've gotten going on that, now we can start fine-tuning it, and then begin our music.
Do you think you might do something like this with the music program, or?
Not like this, but we do want to, right now, we have a weekly catechism book where they have the Bible verse and the part of the catechism and they work on that each week. And also, we have daily chapel, and so they sing the Today and all of that in daily chapel. And then in the classrooms, they work on the music, folk songs, and all of that in the classroom. And the second grade begins the recorder. What else did I forget about? A few years ago, we did have a full-time music director, but we don't anymore.
What I was wondering is with the art, is it better to try and cover the 4 different areas like you do where they get a little bit of each? I was thinking it might be better to only do, say, Gordon's program for the whole school all the time, but maybe the kids would get sick of just doing the painting.
That would be basically my view. I do college and really learn to draw. And while I would use art time specifically for Gordon's, if it was just me alone, just my view alone personally, I would just do Gordon all the time and do other little craft projects that you do weekend or some days. Because I feel that strongly about Gordon's.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I'm thinking for our school plans starting next year. And I could see implementing Gordon's as our basis and then kind of seeing how we could expand out from there.
But you need a lot of lead time of the training, to get yourself an opportunity to go through it. It can be done in several months, but it does need to go to plan for that.
So it takes several months for the certification?